going down like that, I mean, 2-0. I don't know what the game looked like, honestly, but I know now that Mateta's in revolt. Forest v Leeds, that's another really interesting one because no one really wanted to go to the City ground last year, despite Forest struggling for form at times. And Leeds, they struggled too at times last season. So for them to get an away win there to start the season, I think it's a massive result. And I'm pretty sure it was a late goal as well. If I click on this, it will show us. Yeah, Anton Stack, 88th minute. And I think he scored from outside the box as well. I think he's a bit of an outside of the box specialist. So then we come to the star of the show, the big event of the day, Brentford 3-0 Tottenham. And I've got to say, let's have a look at the match facts, actually, because, look, I know that you guys have been talking about Tottenham turning this around. And look, they're going to get stronger at some point this season. Of course they will. De Zerbi is unfortunately a good coach, and I'm sure that he will get a tune out of a lot of the great players that they have in their squad. However, 24 shots to 9. Guys, that is not just a narrow win. That is a pummeling. That's a pummeling. And again, more possession, but not doing anything with it. Same old story. Let's have a look at the standings. Where are Tottenham in 19th place? Just to wrap up the results that we have now we've wrapped them. And we will now wait for, I think, what is going to be a very juicy fixture between City and Bournemouth. I'm really curious about that one, I have to say, because obviously there was a big part of me. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Obviously there was a big part of me, before the Community Shield. I really thought, you just think of City as Man City. But already that's changed my thinking. And I know Bournemouth have a new manager in Marco Rosa. So again, it's really hard to know what to expect from them. But what I find quite interesting, actually, is I was reading an article about how obviously you need to recruit in the transfer windows because you can't stand still as a club. But the biggest predictor of success is much more what the club did in the previous season, what that particular manager did in the previous season, and what that club did in the previous season, than anything that they bring in additionally. And I think when you look at the Bournemouth setup, you just think, in the same way you think about Brentford, that's a good, smart team. So I think that'll be a really interesting fixture because, look, it's not the opening fixture I want for Arsenal. No way. I know City are at home, but, I'm not sure all of the fans are entirely convinced by Maresca. I don't think that's going to be an easy game at all. Right, I'm going to come to some of your comments now. Here we go. Gags Townsend says, bet Scarlett is loving this Spurs result. Gags, you are absolutely right. I have had a good day today. 2 good results for me, and my team didn't even play. Man United and Spurs both losing. It's deja vu. It's a new season. Same old story. Sleepy James says, I was surprised only one of the games had both teams score. Saturday was definitely for home teams. Sunday away teams fight back. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think probably aside from Bournemouth, you would say that the favourites in that set of fixtures are the away team. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Liverpool at St James's Park. Ray says Bergvall was at fault for 2 goals. That's interesting because I know that Bergvall, like Forest have shown some interest in him this summer. He has it's been hinted that perhaps he might not have the role that he thought he was going to have. Guys, I don't know why Fernandes didn't start. I thought, forgive me, if you spent 80 million on someone that they would go straight into the team. So who knows? Alexander James says, Brentford front 3 of Sharda, Thiago, Ouattara, they are big, strong and quick. Yep, you're not wrong, Alexander James. That's true. Double A1 says, hello, fellow Gooner. Good weekend. Hello, fellow Gooner. It's always good to see a Gooner. JD says, hi, Scarlett and chat. My first time joining one of your streams over from AI. Thank you, JD. Welcome, 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 one and all, everybody in the comments. I am so grateful to you. I am so pleased to be here with you tonight. And I can't thank you enough for popping along on your weekend. So we've talked a little about the fixtures. We talked a little about Tottenham and Man United. But guys, surprise, surprise, I want to talk to you a little while about Arsenal. So I'm going to share my screen because I want to show you some fun stuff. This is Kai Havertz scoring his goal. I thought it was a really well taken goal, by the way. I don't know about you guys. I don't. I think before the goal went in, it's not as if Arsenal were in any danger, but I didn't feel like we were piling on the pressure. I don't think we dominated the ball before we scored particularly. And the chance itself, you can see from where Havertz is standing, he's quite close to the edge of the box. It's not an easy finish in the slightest. And he just slotted it so comfortably into that far corner. There he is, looking very happy. Are we going to see another one? No, it's just him celebrating. There's Bukayo Saka celebrating his goal, so we might as well talk about that. Bukayo Saka, it was that Zolis cross into a very dangerous area. Admittedly, someone has just said in the comments the commentary defence was woeful. Yes, Rayo, you're right. It was. I think that the keeper, Rushworth, was very much at fault for this goal. He kind of palmed it out into a very comfortable area for Saka. And I actually thought Saka's finished. I was kind of expecting Saka to smack it, but he didn't. He rolled it in. So even then, it was kind of a scruffy goal. But I don't care. We don't care. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. As much as I love to see Bukayo Saka happy. I think the salient point here, guys, about Arsenal was that the reason why Arsenal may well win this Premier League title is the same reason they won it last year. It's because their floor is significantly higher than everybody else's. It's because they don't mess things up as much as everybody else's. Alexander James says, now Arsenal have won the league. Now they've won the league, Arsenal playing with real confidence. You're not wrong, Alexander James. Although I want to make the point, having been in the ground, and maybe this is me from a fan perspective, I felt nervous, just like you always do in a football game. But I didn't necessarily think at the outset, like, okay, we're all over them. I think what I saw from Arsenal, though, was calm. Arsenal were calm in that chaos of an early game. The Coventry fans were bang up for it. They were well up for it. It was their return to the Premier League. Of course they were, And you're not going to, suddenly be all over the opposition when it's their first game back in the Premier League. But what I admired about Arsenal, and I think this is the word I would characterise their performance with, they had real poise. Real poise. Rayo says Arsenal were well organised. It wasn't just organisation, it was an attitude. So they got their goal. It was a bit scruffy. I think it was Solis who put pressure on the right back. I can't remember who it was. And the ball shook loose to Calafiori, who, guys, here and now on this stream, tell me if you disagree or agree in the comments. Calafiori is one of Arsenal's best attackers. And I'll tell you what, I really have a problem with a lot of these football fans who approach me and say, Calafiori is a centre-back playing at full-back. Yes, he can play at centre-back, but the way he took that ball, I'm sorry. Centre-backs just don't do that. Centre-backs do not do that. He is a very gifted attacking player and really unorthodox. So yes, Rayo, you're right. Calafiori is wonderful. So Calafiori wins the ball back, pulls it back to Havertz, who just caresses it into the corner. And again, I don't think that Kai Havertz has always been a player where people have thought of him as, a really good finisher. I think he at times lacks a little finesse. And I think at times, sometimes, he needs several chances to score the goal. Other than that, I think he's, a perfect player for Arsenal, and I really have no beef with him. I absolutely love him. But I think maybe the fact that it was him who scored that goal speaks to a lot of what was good about Arsenal. Raymondo says, yo guys, nice to have you back, Raymondo. Thank you for joining. Thank you everybody who's here in the comments. Nice to see you all. Nice to spend Saturday evening with you. Plenty of people here tonight. Guys, keep coming along to these EPL Index fan focuses. We're really excited to be growing this season. I'm so grateful to Lola for getting me involved with this. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun the whole show, the whole season. We're going to have a great time. So on to the second Arsenal goal. We touched on it briefly. Christos Zolis, I appreciate the keeper could have done better, but I think the intent, the first time ball into what was, the dangerous space in behind the defence is, to me, what makes Solis a weapon for Arsenal. Because it was just a quick and accurate decision, which again is quite like when you compare that to where Arsenal have been in the past in terms of their attacking options. Sorry, guys, someone's phone is ringing somewhere in here. In fact, I think it's Lola's phone. But look, let's move on to the third goal, Martin Odegaard. Again, I think the fact that it was Havertz, Odegaard, and Saka who scored the goals last night, guys, I think is also a really important point, because Odegaard, Saka, and Havertz are the bedrock of this Arsenal team's success in the past years. And you know what, guys? Last night was the second time they've all played together since 2024. So I think there is a feeling of like, well, there's a lot of talk about Arsenal's attack, and we will come on to the links with Julian Alvarez. But if they can stay fit, you know, that's as good as a lot of Premier League attacks. I don't think it's as good as Liverpool's, by the way. I think Alexander Isak is you know, he's the best striker there has been, although admittedly he was quite injured last season. But I think the difference it could make to Arsenal to have those three players fit, when you put into perspective the fact that Arsenal won the league in spite of those players being absent, not because of them being there, I think that makes Arsenal a really scary proposition. Right, I'm going to come to some of your comments now. Alexander James says, is Havertz a better striker than Gyokeres because he seems to be first choice? Alexander James, unequivocally, yes. To put it simply, he absolutely is. Havertz, I think it's an interesting one because rival fans, like I think Chelsea fans absolutely have no love for Havertz, considering he brought them the Champions League title. But I think Havertz's all-round game, like what he does as a striker for everybody else, his movement, Havertz is sneakily quite fast, actually, surprisingly so. And his all-round game is really what makes him a proposition that I think is like pretty dangerous for Premier League defenses, and pretty helpful to Arsenal. I think the key difference between him and Gyokeres is, and you'll have observed this if you watched Arsenal at all last season, the ball goes up to Victor Gyokeres and it comes back. Nothing sticks to him. Whereas Havertz, he doesn't just do one thing. He occupies loads of positions. He drops into pockets. He can pick a pass. He can run with the ball. He can arrive late in the box. He can hold up play. Whereas I think Gyokeres, I'm sure actually Gyokeres is a better finisher. But what Gyokeres needs to be put into the position to score a goal is much more input than Kai Havertz. And that's why I think Arteta prefers Havertz. Right, coming to more of your comments now. Sleepy James says, I know you can only beat who's in front of you, but I'd be interested to see how Arsenal play against the Big Six. Will they continue to play football, or will they just try not to lose? I mean, I think that's an interesting one, Sleepy James, and I think probably it's likely to be the latter. Like, again, when you think about what has got Arsenal to this point, and they are now champions, is a level of conservatism and a level of defensive solidity that I think has been really important to their ability to win games. Like, I don't think that fact can be overlooked. I don't think it should be. And as an Arsenal fan, I don't want Arsenal to stop defending well. But you know, you saw in the Community Shield, Arsenal were playing better football, and I also think it depends on who the personnel available is. You know, if Odegaard plays in that Arsenal midfield, it makes a big difference. And I'll tell you what, if Mars Lewis Skelly plays in that midfield, it makes a big difference. Guys, 150 of you here tonight across platforms. Thank you so much for joining. 151 now. That's more than were on my first stream. So I just want to thank you very, very much for your time and for coming to have some fun here. More of your comments. MJM McLean, we need to stop Arsenal this season. Another season of Gooner fans, I think, celebrating too much. Well, you know what? If Arsenal fans can't celebrate after last season, then when can they? I think the celebration police need to get back in their box a little bit. Rayo says, Solis reminds me of if Liverpool signed Minter. Yeah, he's a smart signing. The only thing about Minter that I do want to discuss with you guys later on is that he appears to be injured. Tell me more about that. Tell me how, if you're a Liverpool fan in these comments, tell me how you feel about signing a potentially injured player. I know it's a live issue because Junior Krupi is injured, and you know, plenty of people are potentially interested in a deal for him, but seem not to be pursuing one. So Curious what you make of that. Rayo says, really rate Abde from Betis. I'm really impressed with him. I've not seen him play, I must admit. Rayo also, Havertz is a mix between that 9 role and 10 role, which is better for Arsenal's system. Yeah, and I think also in terms of the football question, I can't remember who asked it. Don't overlook the importance of Havertz in that, you know? Kai Havertz is another thing, and a fit Kai Havertz as well. It's something that allows Arsenal to play football. And Gyokeres, love him as I do, and I do love him. I really admire his work ethic. He was the top scorer at Arsenal last season. He scored 21 goals. You can't, at a certain point, you can't argue with that. But do I think he has the quality as a footballer to play well in an Arsenal team that has ambitions of playing good football? No. To put it bluntly, I don't. AA1, you got a surprise manager this season, I reckon Farke. Interesting. I mean, it was a great result for Leeds to kick off with. I've really got to say, I don't have a sense of their trajectory this season. I know they want to kick on from being in a survival scrap, and I think given the quality of the promotion teams, it's likely that they will. But manager of the season, I don't know. I mean, Brentford, like it's really hard to look past Keith Andrews again. And I got to say, looking at him, he's very good looking. I don't know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. Alexander James says, Arsenal have 7 to 8 of the best centre-backs, so they play to their advantage, and Arteta does like a good centre-back, like Konsa. Yeah, and Konsa was unveiled before the game. It was a lovely moment for him. We were all monitoring the size and shade of his jeans. They were very large. He's a very tall man, Konsa. We don't know how effective set pieces are going to be this season. And it was interesting, actually. Corners look different already. I sit right by the corner flag in the clock end. So Arsenal were doing different things. They actually did almost score from a corner, but they almost scored from a corner routine rather than lumping it in and, you know, we don't need to relitigate this, but you know what I mean. And then in the Konsa thing, yeah, I mean, Arsenal's strength is absolutely their defenders. And in signing Konsa, I think rival fans have a perception of Arsenal as, like they always want to sign a defender. I think that's true. Arteta loves a defender. But with the Konsa deal specifically, we are without William Saliba, who is, you know, you might disagree with me. Okay, I'll put him up there with Virgil van Dijk. I think he is the best, if not the second best centre-back in the division, potentially the best in the world. And the loss of that, you know, the loss that incurs to Arsenal's team, even if, and I think Christian Mosquera is at some stage going to be a very, very able centre-back, but he's 22. Like, it's so rare that centre-backs of that age play serious minutes. And then if you go rung below him, you have Marley Salmon, who is 17. And I think really talented. I don't know if any of you guys have watched him. Let me know if you have. But again, like, it actually makes sense to me to buy someone who's 28 from that perspective, because he's in his prime now. Hopefully you get 3 or 4 good years, definitely get 2 good years.